All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the one of the final, if not the final episode of this season. Lots going on. LAFC are headed to the MLS Cup Final. What an amazing season they've had. Look, it's been a year for LAFC. It's been some ups, it's been some downs. But we've always known that this team was talented. We've always known that this team it was going to face some adversity, and there was questions at times about this club. There was even questions at times about Steve Sharundolo from the fans, and I know asking a lot about him. But I think when you look at what he's done in these 2 years, I think most of us forget that this has only been his second year as a coach, and he's already done so much just in a short tenure. And they're one game away from repeating. Justin, let me bring you in here. What are your thoughts on everything that's happened this season for LAFC, and now that they're heading to Columbus for the MLS Cup Final?
Yeah, no, you hit the nail on the head. It has been a season of ups and downs, of adversity, left and right. Because, yeah, I mean, not only injuries and the fatigue and the longest season in MLS history, but LAFC has gotten to the final point, that final hurdle, multiple times, the Champions League final, the Campeones Cup, and they just couldn't get over the line. Once again, it feels like they are at that final hurdle going into MLS Cup. Granted, they finally get a trophy in this season that they've been waiting a while to get one. Although, of course, it is not the main one, the major trophy that they're looking for. So, yeah, it is. It's a big moment and one that LAFC should celebrate for sure, and not take for granted, because it is not easy to beat these teams to get to this point. Only one team can do it. But at the same time, you got to keep your head on straight and make sure that you're going to go into Columbus and drop your best performance of the season, because that is what's going to be needed to beat a very, very good Crew team.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be quite the experience in that game, man. It's just gonna be cold out there. I know you and I are definitely planning to head out there, and how could you not? MLS Cup Final, right? Heading to Ohio, and if we talk a little bit about the Columbus Crew, they were down 2-0 to FC Cincinnati in Cincinnati. I took a shower because I took a quick shower heading to BMO Stadium. Come back after my shower was tied 2-2, and then I was like, and then it goes to over. I was like, what did I miss? I was like, I thought I took a quick shower. What did I miss? They tie the game, and as I'm driving to BMO Stadium, Christian Ramirez, former LAFC player, comes in clutch in the extra time, 115th, I forget what minute it was, but scored the game-winning goal for them. And talk about a team that's resilient. Talk about a team that's never given up, because it wasn't looking good for them in the first half, but they were able to come back and win in extra time. What did you see from that team?
Yeah, well, for those LAFC fans who didn't watch, it reminded me exactly of that Monterey Leagues Cup game in which LAFC went up 2-0 at halftime. You felt like they were in full control of that game. And similarly to Cincinnati, they had not lost a game in which they had scored first the entire season. And then the game seemed to flip on its head about at halftime. And really, with that first Columbus goal, which was an own goal, but it sparked the energy of the game, and Columbus just took it over from there. That is really what it was. Cincinnati couldn't get back into the game, and that's why everybody says momentum's a real thing in sports. Once that ball starts rolling, it is hard to stop it, and that was the case for Cincinnati. Obviously, it hurt them to not have Matt Miazga in there, and Wobodo had to come in later in the game, but it's a huge accomplishment for the Columbus Crew to be able to, again, they were on the road as well in Cincinnati, not quite as far on the road, obviously, within the same state, but an incredible performance from them. And as you mentioned, former LAFC players at the heart of and center of it, Diego Rossi and Christian Ramirez, both getting goals along with the own goal, which would have nearly been a Christian Ramirez goal if it wasn't credited as an own goal, rightfully so. So it is something that I think we've talked about a lot on this podcast. The rest of the league continues to use LAFC as a scouting department, and not only do they do that, but it leads to success for other teams, as we can see. So it's going to be very interesting, of course, for Diego Rossi to have his first game back against LAFC in MLS Cup. That should be really, really exciting. And yeah, I mean, you got to give all the credit to the Columbus Crew because they have really stuck with their game plan throughout this season under Wilfred Nancy. At the beginning of the season, there were some tough times. Similarly to LAFC, they had some difficult times this season a little bit earlier on in the season than LAFC did, but they, wanted to stick with Wilfred Nancy's play out of the back, possess the game, take the game to your opponent's style. And it didn't work for a while. They were having trouble passing out of the back. They were conceding a lot of goals. They were making big mistakes left and right, but they would also score a lot of goals. And now, as the season has progressed, they've shored up that defensive aspect a little bit more and more as the season has progressed, and they have not slowed down in scoring goals whatsoever. So it is a very, very dangerous Crew team, and I think it's going to make for a very exciting MLS Cup.
Yeah, it definitely is to talk about that. And I think, I don't know if it was you or we are talking to the game. I think the last time, or one of the last times Christian Ramirez was at LAFC, I think this is when they had traded him and he was watching LAFC win the Supporter Shield. And I remember he was just standing there. And I think someone brought that up, and he was just standing there. Now he has an opportunity to beat LAFC and potentially, or lift the trophy. And I think just certain things like that, right? And Rossi, who's not going to forget about Diego Rossi? He's had, I think that he scored 4 goals in a game against the LA Galaxy. He had some of the best performances as a winger, and he's one of the LAFC originals. And I remember my first experience meeting Rossi. I was at BMO Stadium when they just had unveiled the stadium, when they just had opened it to like the media and everything you could tour, and he was one of the first players to come. And I don't know if anybody has ever seen Diego Rossi's player card, his rookie year, his first year with LAFC. It's him talking to the media, and I think my hand's in there or whatever, because I remember like seeing the player card. I was like, I remember that day vividly, because he was one of the first players that we got to talk to. At least I got to talk to, and just seeing that, and then obviously he went to Turkey, and then he comes back to MLS, and he's still having success. So it's going to be I know it's definitely probably mixed emotions for some fans that were cheering him on, and obviously for him, playing against his former club, I know that has to be exciting.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he still has the only player chant in LAFC history with that Diego Rossi. He scored the first goal against the Sounders, Diego Rossi. So yeah, I think he will always forever live in LAFC history, of course, because of that.
Yeah, scoring the goal, obviously being one of the LAFC originals there as well. Let's talk about Saturday's game, because it was from the get-go. LAFC, Carlos Vela just missed one, like it was a gimme goal in the first 2 minutes, and he rarely misses those. And I was surprised that he missed it, to be honest with you. But Houston really played. I mean, outside of those early threats from LAFC, like in that first half, Houston was playing pretty good. Houston controlled the ball. Their one touch was really good. What we've seen of Houston, the Houston Dynamo this season, and how they've been able to control the ball and how they've been able to move the ball around. Even Hector Herrera, what he's done this season. No one ever expected them to make it this far, to be one of the Final Four teams. I was very impressed with them, because I haven't really kept up with them, and finally seen them here against LAFC. I was impressed overall. I know they lost, but I was impressed of how they were able to move the ball and how they were at times able to control the game.
Yeah, I think that they controlled a lot of the possession, but they kind of failed to penetrate in a lot of ways. They moved the ball around left and right, little passes, little triangles, but there was no penetration into the midfield. There was no chance creation. They couldn't, draw LAFC into the mid and try and exploit the wings, because the fullbacks were staying put. They were absolutely locking down Quinones and Dorsey on the wings. So it was just a very tough time, I think, for Houston to try and penetrate that midfield, which is exactly what LAFC, wanted to do. Ryan Hollingshead talked about it after the match. He said, we knew exactly what they wanted to do. They want to play this little tiki-taka, hold on to the ball, but that's absolutely fine with LAFC if they're not going anywhere. And they absolutely weren't. So yeah, it was a really good performance. You mentioned at the beginning, I mean, Carlos Vela set that tone for the entire game, not only with the missed chance, yes, in the second minute, but then he put one in the back of the net 2 minutes later, was called just offside. I think it was a really tight decision. I think he was nearly in his own half there. But it shows what Carlos Vela brings to this team. Ilya Sanchez talked about it after the game. He sets the tone not only for the team, but for the stadium, for the fans. And they are, rapturous, not only because they are every single game, but when you have Carlos Vela, making it look like you're about to score at every single moment, it keeps you locked into that game. And I think, yeah, it really is an interesting one because Carlos Vela did a great job to me in exploiting what Houston's failures were. They played much too high of a line, in my opinion, and they asked Steve Clark to be the sweeper keeper. But Carlos Vela continued to sit on that last man, continued to try and get in behind. And granted, he was caught offside 3 times for the first time all season, but that tells you that he adjusted his role to ensure that he's getting exactly what he needs to out of his game against Houston. And of course, the wingers next to him are 2 of the fastest players probably in the entire league, and they were trying to do the same. So it worked out, I think, pretty well in terms of the game plan for LAFC. And of course, a 3rd consecutive clean sheet, which really is the hallmark for LAFC now, which is really weird to say for a team that is known for its attacking prowess, right? That's how it's been built. But now it is, well, you only need one because Maxime Crepeau is not going to let in a goal, and your midfield and defenders are going to concede very few chances. So I think it's a job well done all around for LAFC once again.
No. To just add on to that, too, Ryan Hollins said, he's become a goal scoring machine under LAFC. No one would have thought, none of us would have thought he was going to be this big of a threat when he first joined the black and gold. And he said, he was joking right in the press conference when he was talking about like, hey, yeah, I think he's not too far from Denny Bwanga's goals in playoffs, right? Obviously, Denny Bwanga's second season and MLS, but like, he understands his role that like he mentioned, he's not going to be right as flashy in terms of speed. He's going to be, he said, he's going to be there at the right place at the right time when it comes to scoring those goals. And I think that's what you need. And then you want a player like Ryan Hollins that he's going to be. He's not necessarily going to be marked. I don't want to say he's going to be necessarily wide open, but he's going to have those opportunities because Vela, Bouanga, obviously, Murillo, the bigger guys, he's creating these opportunities for himself in a way because he puts in that extra effort that if the ball lands in the box, that's my opportunity just to tap it in. And there's been countless times this season that he's done it time in and just like found a way to score, and it's good, and he's enjoying it. He's enjoying it and he's joking, and that's what you want to see of players outside of Vela, outside of Bouanga, to be able to score those goals, because this final that you may need a goal from Bouanga or Palacios or whatever, someone that's not named Carlos Vela, Bouanga to win you a game like this.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, he is now the LAFC's 2nd highest playoff goal scorer, passing up Vela on 2. He now has 3, and Bouanga a few more than that. So yeah, he's got those sights in his sights, I guess. But I'm glad you brought it up because he is continually dangerous, not only on these set pieces, which he talked about. He knows he's just a veteran and he knows players in this league. He knows that Steve Clark doesn't want to come off his line. And that means that you can get a little bit closer. You can get a rebound. You can get a tap in the way that he did. And it's just a knowledge and awareness of how this game works, how he can pop up in the right place at the right time. But I think it's important because not only did he score the goal, but he was the man of the match. And I know Maxime Crepeau technically won that award, but Ryan Hollingshead to me was undoubtedly the best player on the pitch. And it started in the first few minutes when he absolutely shut down Nelson Quinones for, I think it was 3 tackles in the first 10 minutes of the game. And it was really telling to me because if you remember back, Gio, in the first game that these two sides played back in mid-June in Houston when the Dynamo won 4-0, Hollingshead was absolutely tormented by Quinones for all 3 of those first 3 goals, and it was his worst game of the season without a doubt. So for him to come back and respond in the way that he did in the biggest game of LAFC season thus far, at least within MLS play, and, just his stat line, let me read it out to you for a second because it blew my mind. It's one of the best stat lines I've ever seen for a defender. Obviously the goal, but 8 passes into the final third, 10 recoveries, 4 interceptions, 4 clearances, 78% duels won, 100% tackles won, and 0 times dispossessed in that game. It doesn't get much better than that for Ryan Hollingshead. And not only that, but it tells you the defensive structure that he is an attacking fullback. He wants to get involved, but his only touch in the Houston box was his goal, because he knew that staying put defensively and holding on to Nelson Quinones, keeping him in his hip pocket the whole game, was the key to victory for LAFC, or one of them at the very least.
Yeah, no, I mean, and just, I mean, he did all that and scored a goal, right? Like the goal is a cherry on top, right? We everybody expects him. I know LFC prefers, like, obviously focus on the defensive end, but like if he could give you that and score a goal, is like, my goodness, like, and he's done it more so many times this year for LFC, and that, right? And I'm glad you mentioned that game against Houston. That just tells you, like, hey, he wanted to prove something in this big game, because, right, he didn't have a good performance the last time around during the season against the Dynamo when they lost like that. And I think when you have players that are locked in like that, and you have the camaraderie, and obviously you hear more and more, like, oh yeah, how they get along in the locker room. Well, there's a reason why they're going to all these finals this year. There's a reason why, they're battling together with themselves, together against these teams. But also, like, I think Steve Sherrill talked about, like, how these guys, they're for each other, and they work, and like, not one player. Everybody, there's talented players on this team, but everybody has to work hard. And it was hitting the point, like, yeah, unless you're Messi or something like that, like, everybody has to work hard in order to get to a final, and that's what we're seeing from every single player. Got to work hard from keeper, right? And it's kind of cliche, right? But like, when you see it, and you see things like Ryan Holland said, and you see things like, sometimes, like, even with the youngsters, you saw Eric Dueñas earlier this season. There's been a lot of rotation on certain positions, but at the same time, everybody's been locked in and connected. And you see, and then the stories come out in the press conference. Kellen Acosta and Ryan Holland just joking around with each other, and you get to know about their foundation and why they care about certain things. And things when, like, Latif Blessing was saying that, like, they hung out with each other in LAFC, but they don't hang out with each other at his new club. So things like that tend to stand out a lot more, because you're like, oh wow, this is a unique club. This is a unique experience that these players are having, because maybe a lot of these players don't have these experiences everywhere else. And you talk about the 32-52 and all that. Like, there's just more and more things that makes this club and this unit really, really awesome to watch.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's one of those things that's a little bit intangible, a little bit difficult, especially for fans to kind of connect with, because, well, every team says they're a family, right? Every team says that they're brothers and they work together and they're all connected in this way. But as you said, it's not always that way. And it really speaks to the way that these players have, not only, like Ryan Hollingshead continues to rave about it, but I think, yeah, Latif Blessing's a great example of, well, if you go to other clubs, it's not always that same way. And yeah, it is an interesting one, because, yeah, as you say, Maxime Crepeau said the same thing you did. It's a cliche, but at the same time, it's not, because it's just the truth. And we can talk about how much this team is reliant on Denny Bouanga. We all know it. I think this is the first win that they've had without him scoring in 3.5 months. So it's evident, but at the same time, that only works when the defense is holding strong, when his one goal results in a win, because you kept that clean sheet on the other end. So it is 11 guys in attack and 11 guys in defense.
100%. Let's talk now about, obviously, there's a few players that may or may not be back with the LFC. Well, let's put it this way. There's a few players that are in a contract at the end of the season. I'll just name the obvious one: Carlos Vela, obviously Giorgio Chiellini, Palacios, and there's obviously a few others. But we might have just seen Carlos Vela last game at Bank of California, or BMO Stadium. We might have just seen him his last time wearing a black and gold jersey here in Los Angeles. I hope that's not the case. I hope we could see at least one more year with Carlos Vela and LAFC, if both player and obviously and team want that. And they're gonna have to come together and agree on a number, because I think that may be it. What's the right price for Vela? What's the right price for LAFC? But I hope this is not the end for LAFC. I hope this is not the end for Carlos Vela, because of what they've done, and it's just been a joy watching them these last couple of seasons. But let's talk about, like, his impact with this team, because I think when I think about Carlos Vela and what he's done with this club, right? He's won an MLS Cup. He brought the trophy last year, two Supporter Shields, obviously two CCL appearances. Um, Obviously, I would assume he has a record of the most goal scores for LAFC. The impact he's had just in the community, the impact he's had just that 2019 season. I don't think I'll ever forget that 2019 season when it was just so fun watching Carlos Vela play and watching Carlos Vela score those goals. And then obviously, he goes through that 2020 season. He had something, it wasn't that good for him. And then seeing him last year, go through everything he went through and win the trophy. And now he has a chance to repeat. And I think they would be the third or fourth team ever to repeat. And I think the last team that did it was Galaxy in 2012 or something like that. It's been quite some time. But what are your thoughts on Carlos Vela potentially playing his last game for LAFC?
Yeah, I mean, can you really understate what he means to this club? I don't think so. He is synonymous with LAFC, the first signing in the club's history, and he has been the captain ever since. He has led this team in every single way that you can imagine, on the field, off the field. It doesn't matter. And I think there's a lot of talk of Carlos Vela being this kind of quiet leader, this kind of maybe not as invested as some of the other players. And I think it really is a myth, because behind the scenes, every player, every coach raves about the way that he is competitive in training, the way that he brings the best out of every teammate that he has. And he is focused on one thing, and that is winning. It's not about Carlos Vela getting goals. It's not about winning a golden boot. It's not about winning an MVP, things he's done, of course, but it is about winning those games. And I think that he's shown that this season more than any, because he has switched position into the number 9. He has taken a step back, allowed Denny Bouanga to be the star of the team, and said, I'm going to do the hard work. I'm going to make sure that I do whatever it takes to get this team back to an MLS Cup and try and win it once again. So there's just no understating what this guy means to this club. And to imagine LAFC next year without him is really, really difficult, because we've never seen it. He just seems like he is part of the fabric of this club.
Yeah, especially look, it's been obviously, LAFC have a short history as a club, but you can't say LAFC without Carlos Vela, and vice versa the last couple of years, right? So he's been so critical for the team's success, and obviously, what they've done with the city and this just community to bring people to watch him, to watch this team play, because obviously he was the first big star signing. I remember when they signed him, I was like, I couldn't believe that LAFC had gotten Carlos Vela that year, because I remember it was just so fun watching him with the national team and what he was doing in Europe, and I was just like, wow, right? It's a big signing, and now what he's been able to do is pretty cool. But also, look, let's talk about Chiellini. Also second year here with the club, as another opportunity to win a trophy. This one, I don't think it would surprise the people that much if he weren't to come back next season, obviously because of his age. But he's been great, man. He's played on turf when we didn't expect him to play on turf. He does not play like his age. He's still going at it strong, and it's just like, and it's crazy to say that we've got, like, LAFC has got an opportunity, and we've got an opportunity to watching one of the best center backs in the world to come play here. And it's just crazy to think, because of Chiellini's history with Italy and Juventus, and and everything he's done in Europe, and being able to see him here with the LFC, it's just been phenomenal. And he's also a great individual, great human being. Anytime I've had any interactions with him in the press conference, he's always shakes your hand. At times, even though at times sometimes he talks a little low, he talks a little low. He may need to speak up a little louder. But yeah, it's been amazing to see Chiellini with LAFC.
Yeah, I mean, the ultimate professional, right? I think that is the thing that struck me immediately upon his move to LA, is that you understand why he's reached the levels that he has in his career, because every single thing that he does seems to be the right thing. Not only on the field, but I'm talking about off the field. He always makes the right decision, whether it's with training himself, keeping fitness, helping teammates, teaching the youngsters, whatever it may be. He is right there to do it. He is spending all of his time. He is studying every other team in the league. I don't think there's any player in MLS that knows the rest of the league in the depth that Chiellini does. And that tells you not only is he that good, but he came over from Europe. He came to a lesser league, you want to call it, but a lot of players can think, oh, I can dominate. I can outplay these players because they've been in the top of the game in the world. But Chiellini never had that attitude. He thought, it's a football game. I got to prepare in the same way that I always have. And it leads to his success on the field. Sure, we can see his age play a part in plays like Jordan Morris when he gets, dusted because he just can't keep up. But it's more important to look at the overall in the past 2 years. It's no coincidence that LAFC has turned into a extremely strong defensive team, as we've been discussing. Yes, it obviously has to do with Steve Cherundolo, a defender, becoming the coach, but it also has to do with putting one of the best defenders of all time in your center back. And that's why it's been so important that he's been able to be fit and play these playoff games, because as Ryan Hollingshead talked about, last night, it was Chiellini just continues to tell him things, instruct him throughout the game. At halftime, whenever Chiellini will notice something, he'll tell Ryan, and Ryan's like, "Hey man, I'm trying to play the game," but Ryan is, it is just for improvement. It's just to help the team, and that is the type of thing. It's like another coach right on the field. So that is going to be his next step, right? If it is retirement for him after this year, moving into coaching or front office of some kind, and in a football club. I'm sure LAFC fans would love it to be in LA. I think it's more likely he goes back to Juve and takes up some kind of job over there. But whatever it is, he's going to be fantastic at it because of the mentality that he brings to everything. His work ethic is out of this world.
Yeah, no, I mean it's just been phenomenal. Like I said, being able to watch him and what he does, and even at the current age he is, it's just insane. Another player we talk about, Palacios.
Mm.
He has a bright future. Obviously, he's had a successful time with LAFC. There's rumors that he may be going somewhere in Europe. He may be going here, right? Especially, I know LAFC wants to re-sign him. Well, that's what the expectations, they want to re-sign him and everything. But I think Palacios is ready to go, and I think he's one of the exciting players that is ready to take the next step in his journey. And you can't, obviously there's still one more game left, but yeah, I think it's been. I think when you have players like Palacios that come in when they're younger and develop themselves and win that starting role, and provide the services that he's been able to provide on the defensive end and on the crosses on the offensive end. And I think that's what every club wants to have, is players like a Palacios that wants to improve on themselves. And when you continue to improve yourself, there's going to be other clubs that are going to want you. And I think that's both good for the club and player. And LAFC's been able to build that up, with the short amount of time they've been able to build the system really, really well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. He has been fantastic and his growth has been incredible to watch. It's going to be interesting to see this free agent market because he's going to have interest from all over the place. And yeah, I'm sure LAFC is going to want to re-sign him as well. But he would need a significant raise for that as well. So it will be an interesting free agency for him. I think he deserves to get that move to Europe, and probably that will happen. You look at it and you say, yeah, LAFC probably wanted to get some money out of that, but should they win MLS Cup, it's probably worth foregoing that transfer fee. And more importantly for LAFC, as you mentioned, it's about making the statement that you can develop players, that you can put them on to the next level, the next step in their career. And that is what is going to lead to bringing in the next crop of young talent and the best that you can bring in, because the more that you prove that you will be that stepping stone to where they want to get to, that is that's the reason that they're going to choose LAFC in the future. So yes, I think it's unlikely that Palacios returns, but he loves LA. He's also been one of the key pieces of this team for years now. So you never know. Maybe LAFC and John Thorrington can pull off a big coup by re-signing him. But should they not, yeah, it's going to be a difficult one to replace. because, as Steve Cherundolo referred to him, I think a couple months ago, he's one of the best, if not the best fullback in the league.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Him and the player also, Sifu as well, obviously who moved on earlier this season. But those, I think that's what you want as a club, and what the LAFC has been able to build the foundation here. Not just I mean, from being able to hire Steve Cherundolo, which most of us we didn't know what to expect, right? And we did not know what to expect, and now we've seen every other fruits of the labor of Cherundolo, how he's coached and what he's been able to do with this club. And then the players that they bring in, like Boanga, right? Kike, Chiellini. So we're starting to see a mixture. And I think if you have that foundation, you have that system built, and you continue to have this is where clubs like this, a club like LAFC really cements themselves as winning one championship is great. Winning two championships back to league titles, then you can start becoming a franchise, right? Like one of those franchise, right? In LA, right? You need multiple championships to continue in doing that, to prove what you're doing. And if LAFC can do it this next Saturday and win back-to-back league titles, I mean, it's just going to be impressive at what they're doing, and also in this era of MLS, right? And no one has done the back-to-back in this era of MLS, which just lets you know how difficult it is, right? If they're able to do that, and then this guarantees them a CCL berth, right, for next season by winning the championship. Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think this is the only way they get into the CCL next year if they win on Saturday or next year.
Yes, the newly renamed CONCACAF Champions Cup. Yes, it is the only way LAFC can get in is to win MLS Cup. Unfortunately, the Western Conference Championship didn't win it for them due to the way that the qualification is structured, even though Columbus has already earned their qualification, of course. So, yeah, they have to go and win that game in Columbus for CCC qualification next year, which is, as you say, a big milestone for them as well, besides the trophy.
Yeah. Well, look, I know you and we have plans to head to Columbus. And if you guys are headed, obviously, you listeners, you guys are headed as well. Pack warm, because it's going to be cold out there. I mean, I woke up today and I was like, oh, this feels cold. And I was like, I haven't even looked at the weather in Columbus, because I know it is a different type of cold over there, especially this time.
70% raining on Saturday right now.
Oh, 70%. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Well, hopefully I may just have to stay in the press box, because, man, if it's raining, I don't know. I love watching the games live. And I remember last year at the MLS Cup Final, they put us on the extras. They put us on the seats. Last year was amazing, because I went back and forth depending on which side LFC was playing. I would go back and forth. I would just go like, okay, if they're playing on this end, if they're scoring on this end, I would just go back and forth. And then penalties and everything. Oh, man, it was a crazy experience. But if it's raining, I'm going to just stay at one spot this time around. I'm gonna just stay.
Hopefully no rain. Keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah, hopefully no rain. But no, it should be exciting. I know a big crew of us, at least from some of our media friends, are planning on going. If you're planning on going, then definitely plan for the rain. I didn't know that until now, so I'm definitely going to plan for that. But with that said, Justin, my brother, I appreciate you being on. All you listeners, thank you guys for listening. And that wraps it up for Gio. This is Justin. Oh, for Justin, this is Gio. We'll catch you guys next time. Bye, everybody.